All right, so Craig, where do we start? I remember you sat in that chair a couple years ago, almost a couple years ago, about a year and a half ago. All right, let's start with this. Why don't you tell us who you are?
Hey, I'm Kraig. Um, I am a formerly morbidly obese person who started CrossFit in June. Actually, I remember exactly June 20th, 2022. So,
Why do you remember exactly?
because 3 days before that, I think I had hit my lowest point um, ever in terms of just how I felt about my health. And and that day I walked in and was greeted by Noelle, and the rest is history. So just a friendly start, not what I was expecting at all, and just really made a good first impression. And I thought, let's give this a shot. I
Yeah,
got nothing else to lose.
yeah.
I've tried everything. So,
Tell us a little bit about what you expected
well,
before you came in.
if I back up a little bit, my choice of fitness was mostly cardio. I did a lot of hiking. Sometime around when I turned 40, I decided to just kind of have a little early midlife crisis and start climbing. So, wanted to climb a lot of mountains and see a lot of the world, and was able to do that. Healthy knees, healthy body, all those kinds of things. So, for about a 10-year period straight, that's all I did. Recognizing in hindsight that, I wasn't doing any kind of strength training other than my own body weight going uphill. Kind of made me crooked, if in a way. So I was just unbalanced. But after each one of those, I'm very goal oriented. So after each major mountain climb, we're talking things up to 20,000 feet.
Yeah, where would you
Um,
go?
been to Kilimanjaro in Tanzania, Africa. Been to Ecuador twice, and have climbed Cotopaxi, which is the tallest mountain I've ever climbed. Chimborazo, which is next door. Just both dormant volcanoes, very tall mountains, over 6,000 meters. That's like a bragging right when you get above 6,000 meters. It's very rare air
Really?
because there aren't very many mountains on Earth other than the Himalayas, where
Yeah.
you know the tallest mountains are. So then I started to get a goal kind of in my head to start climbing higher and higher and more, and my body started wearing out, and it costs a lot of money to travel around the world and those kinds of things.
Sure.
But after each goal, I would just have this letdown,
Hmm.
like, what do I do now? And then I'd sit around and be sedentary, and the worst I've ever seen was I did an Ecuador climb in January, I believe it was, because it was warmer there um, at the time.
What, like, circa what time? Like, what year was this? Do you know? Estimate?
Yeah, this is January 2014, and then since Ecuador is on the equator, it was always kind of warmer climate, even though it was winter here. So when I got back from that trip, literally by middle of March, I gained 40 pounds.
Wow.
So I mean, we're talking just eating
Yeah.
everything every day, all the time. So I did that for good 10 years, just up and down, up and down,
What
up
were
and
what was
down.
your normal weight fluctuation you would see?
I've always been above 200 pounds, so my weight fluctuation would usually go between the best shape I ever got in. I got to 198 before Kilimanjaro because I didn't want to die. So I was at 270 when I started training for that trip.
Jesus.
So that was probably my norm. I mean, I sat between 256 and 275 for most of a decade in the early
How tall are you?
2000s. 6 foot.
Yeah. Okay.
So, according to the BMI, I'm morbidly obese.
Sure.
So,
Yeah, like when you came in, I got your in body right here. When you first came in, you were at 262, and your percent body fat was at 41% body fat.
yep, yep,
Yep.
yep. Rounding up, almost half my weight was just fat.
Yep.
So, and that now that I know what I know, a lot of that was due to just doing cardio only. So,
Yep.
um, so anyway, that's kind of what I did.
So for 10 years, from 40 to 50, you
Yeah,
would just bounce between 270, 250, 260, and 200 pounds.
right.
You get in good shape. You go on a hike like a crazy, extreme mountain climb, and then you come back from that, like have the, not depression, but the letdown of being done with that
What's
goal.
next? Yeah.
What's next? And so you go back to eating, being sedentary, gain your weight back. It's like a yo-yo.
Yeah, and there was a pattern emerging, though. I went from the first major climb, Kilimanjaro, to the last one, which was just Pikes Peak in Colorado in 2022. My preparation for each one of those was getting lax. I was like, okay, I've already been there, done that, and I'd never failed, even though the prior, I don't remember which one it was. I think it was Mount Washington in New Hampshire. Um, I had only gotten down to like 245, but I still made it.
Yeah.
It was a hell of a climb. It sucked, you know. Every it was, you know, I was breathless the entire time, but I still made it. You know? So I started to justify, I can be kind of out of shape and still do these things.
There had yet to be any kind of major consequences,
right,
or misses.
But I was always leading people too. I didn't do these alone, so I was always sort of the guide.
Interesting.
And I wasn't leading by example very well. I would tell people what they needed to do to prep. And again, looking back, that wasn't the right advice. I would just tell them to climb, just always be going uphill. And I didn't say anything about strength training or anything like that. So so that was sort of my my decade or two leading up to 2022, June 20th. So walking in here was really because it's the only thing I hadn't tried, CrossFit. So I'd tried group classes and just my own.
The why, like where'd you do group classes up?
You know, like the other fitness centers around here, and I'd be paying this membership and not showing up, just like everybody. I mean, it's just typical.
Most people.
Yeah. So, and then when I would go, I would sit here and think, I'm doing this workout, but then I'd realize, you know, it's been 3 minutes since I did my last set, you know. So I was just going through the motions and always using machines, which I think just aren't great. They're not working the right muscles sometimes. So, yeah, I just figured I'd try this. I'd heard about it.
So from the time you heard about it to when you tried it, what was that time like? How long was that?
I mean, I heard about it 10 years ago, like when it was really starting to get started. And then watched some YouTube videos. And to be honest, some of the people that were posting, I wasn't too impressed with. They were a little bro-y, you know?
Yeah, I remember that. You told me that.
Yeah, and I was like, I don't want to be around a bunch of bros. It's just not my thing. I had no idea the kind of community it really was, you know, behind the curtain. I had no idea it was just the regular people like me and others that have normal jobs and just come in and they want to get fit. So when I came in that day and talked to Noel and then looked around at the people that were there, I was like, I look like that guy. Yeah. So I said, well, and you guys talked it up really well in terms of what to expect. You didn't oversell. And I just thought it'd be worth it. So you advised me to do at least a month of personal training, which was a good idea, because if I'd tried to start doing the WODs right away, I would have probably quit. Yeah. So it's just amazing to recognize, you know, how far I've come in that 18 months now. So
yeah, that's a good segue into like what have you found? So the past 18 months. You tell him. Like, this is your story.
Yeah.
Look at the body and
share some information. I've got this paper here that tells me what I've been doing. I knew I was making progress. My goals were different, I think. Well, not different. I mean, maybe they're the same as a lot of people, but mine was urgency. That's the word I would use. I had a sense of urgency. You know, I'm in my 50s, and I felt like time is accelerating, which as it normally does as you get older. Sure. And all those bad choices I was making, I was not going to be able to erase them very easily.
I want to pause that. I want to actually go into that micro thing. So like, can you go into a little bit of detail about when you say bad choices?
Yeah.
What do you mean? Because I'm wondering if there's things that you can retrospect on that were bad choices.
Yeah.
That other people might not realize they're doing.
The main one was I'll start again on Monday. So lots of binge eating, lots of bad things that just tasted good and made me happy. You know, so I was trying to find satisfaction in things. Some people do it. It's shopping. Sure. Some people it's alcohol. Some people it's food. For me, it was food. Yeah. What were some of your things that were your go-tos? Taco Bell is a guilty pleasure.
Sure.
And I got to the point where I'd order 2 meals and 2 drinks for myself, but acted like I was doing it, like,
Yeah, for someone else.
yeah,
Like
exactly.
with your partner. Yeah.
And sometimes I'd order food from, a food delivery place that would, deliver 4 sets of silverware because they had so much food. They thought it was just for a family, and I would eat it all.
Yeah.
So those kinds of choices, never measured what I was eating. I just assumed I knew, it's about 300 calories. No, it was probably more like 1,000,
Yeah, right.
those kinds of things. So I knew those things were going to creep up on me. I knew what I was doing wrong. I always thought, well, I'll just suck it up for a couple of months and lose it all again. And
yeah, so it was like this false sense of security.
It is that I always thought I could do it because I had done it before. But then obviously, as they say, the older you get, the harder it is. So, yeah, it was just bad food choices, mainly diet.
Like fast food. Were you drinking any calories? Did you drink soda or drink things?
No, I've never been a soda drinker. I think I don't really get a lot of calories from beverages, and just a social drinker. So nothing bad like that. It was almost 99% food, and really bad food. I mean, just high in all the trans fats and really no nutritional value whatsoever. I mean, lots of subs and
stuff tastes good.
Yeah, stuff, chips. There are always chips in the house. Those kinds of things. So, typical American diet, unfortunately.
Yeah, you're right.
So yeah, that was. So those were bad choices. Being sedentary were bad choices.
What would a normal day look like for you?
I'd go to work, sit behind a computer all day long, only get up to go to the bathroom, basically. Come home, immediately get into comfortable clothes or stop at a drive-through on the way home. Just eat until I was almost sick, just full. And then watch TV or play video games. I still play video games at my age. And that was I probably did that more than watch TV for a long period of time. And then I'd go to bed, and then around midnight I'd wake up, be hungry again, eat again, go back to bed. So that was affecting my sleep. So yeah, I was probably getting 5 hours of sleep per night if I was lucky, and it was probably not even good sleep because I had so much food in my belly. So it was just rinse and repeat for years. Most of from my 30s on, it was just that's just the way it's been.
Yep.
And I also was able to justify it because I didn't win the genetic lottery, but I did win in terms of just there's been no history of heart disease or cancer or anything like that in my family. So I'd do my physicals every year, and my numbers would come back fine. I'd be overweight, but my cholesterol and things like that were not bad. So I'd always say, "Oh, I can just keep eating like this."
No consequences.
Did you have
any like medications or prescriptions?
I was on nothing. Cool. I mean, so and I barely saw the doctor. I had a few knee surgeries, but those are I call them sports injuries, but basically hiking injuries. But then I started to notice, it getting the pain getting worse.
The pain in your knees?
In my knees and joints in general. So I started I'm an information junkie. So I did some research, and I started to recognize that certain foods would affect inflammation. And I realized inflammation.
What kind of foods did you learn about?
A lot of like deep fried foods, a lot of, sugars, alcohol, things like that. The things that, the stuff they tell you to avoid.
Sure. They can cause chronic joint pain.
Chronic joint pain, exactly. And it got bad to the point where I was wearing knee braces and everything, just to thinking that would help offset it. I started taking, that's when I started getting prescriptions. So I started getting powerful pain meds, the opioid kind, and I can see why there's a crisis because I started to rely on them.
All because of your joint pain.
All because of my joint
being
pain.
Overweight and the diet you're eating.
Exactly.
And your lack of activity.
Yeah. So I would shrug it off as just getting old.
Yeah.
Arthritis. The doctor told me it was grade 4 arthritis, which is the highest. It's bone on bone. Yeah. You're going to need knee replacements eventually, and this was in my 40s, late 40s. Yep. So this was years ago. So it was inevitable to me. So maybe in my mind, I checked out and just thought,
whatever.
So
it's out of your control.
Yeah. But then I started to just kind of think through it, and I wanted to continue to be active, and I love to travel. And I was like, I don't want to be the person that is sitting in a motor coach with a bunch of old people because I can't get out and hike this canyon or whatever.
Very real option.
Right, exactly. See it from a window, and that wasn't for me. So I tried one more mountain climb in 2022 in June.
Which one?
Pikes Peak again. I had a couple that I worked with that had never been west of the Mississippi, and I was telling them all about these mountain climbing. Yeah, and they were so excited. And they're like, "When are we going?" And I was joking, and I was like, "You want me to take you?" And I barely knew them. And then my oldest brother would always go on these trips with me too. So I asked him if he wanted to go, and so I put together a team of us. I started kind of getting ready for it in like March of 2022. I lost maybe 7 pounds. So I was like in the high 250s at that point. And I knew when we got there, I wasn't going to make it, but I didn't tell anybody. So we set out. It's a two-day climb, and goes up to 14,100 feet. And I got 1 mile into it, barely even off on the trail. And I stopped everybody. I said, "I'm sorry, I can't go." My hip was hurting, my knees were hurting. I was out of breath after a mile, and just turned around and went back and just kind of like pretty much cried all the way back to the car.
They keep going?
They kept going. My brother had been there. He knew what to do. So
Yeah.
I said, "Take care of him. And I'll see you in a couple of days."
Damn, that's a super fucking emotional
Yeah,
experience.
yeah, very, very emotional. First time I'd ever just gave up.
Like that was the failure
That was
you
the
had never
failure.
experienced.
That was my low. So I know my low wasn't nearly as bad as other people's lows, especially people who have addictions and things like
It's
that.
subjective though, dude. I mean, like it's all
Yeah.
personal. Like, the worst thing that's ever happened to you is the worst thing that's ever happened to you.
Right. Yeah. And it had been I'd been building. I knew it was coming. So I was getting lower and lower. So emotionally, yeah, it was terrible. And I thought, I have two choices: give up or get motivated. So I stewed on it for a couple of days when I got back, and I don't remember what day of the week June 20th was, but when I came in that day, I had it was fresh. It was still fresh. The wound was still there, and I basically just said, if I don't turn this around, I'm a dead man. So I felt like I was on borrowed time at that point. And I should mention I was on blood pressure medicine at that point too. It was sky high. I mean, it was like 157 over 102 or something like that. And so stress and all those things factored into it. And so I started doing some research on what kinds of exercises I should be doing, and then recognized that I just want to be able to stand up. I want to be able to lift my groceries out of the car. I want to be able to bend this way and that way. And then the term functional fitness kept coming up in Google searches, and it led to CrossFit. And I'm like, that's CrossFit,
Yeah.
because I'd heard about it and I
Sure.
thought it was just ultra athlete thing.
Yeah, super intense stuff.
Yeah. So yeah, that led me here, and basically the journey here was an interesting start. I started doing the personal training.
What do we do? Like 3 sessions a week for a month or two? For an
We
hour?
did 1 month. Yeah.
1 month of 1 hour sessions.
I want to say it was 3 or 4.
Yeah, I think you're right. Sounds good.
So yeah, so I came in and got a lot. I think I got like 12 sessions, something like that.
Yeah. And what,
12 or 16. So
and just a little bit of perspective, like what was it why do you think that was the right move for you? Starting off with one-on-ones for a little bit.
Because I knew I wasn't going to be able, thanks to, modern era, consuming, I consumed enough YouTube to see that even a 20-pound kettlebell was going to be challenging to me. And I had some weights at home,
Sure.
and I was like, before I go in, let me see if I can even squat.
Yeah.
I couldn't squat, not even body weight squat.
Yeah, but
So with the knee pain and just general lack of shape, my quads were not strong at all. So I tried a wall sit, and I think I timed out at 15 seconds or something like that. It was ridiculous.
Sure.
So I thought, well, the way you guys talked about it, you would go at my pace.
Yep.
You challenged me, but you wouldn't like overdo it. So, and then I just remember that first workout being very basic stuff, just bending over and lifting a PVC pipe, and whatnot, and being sore the next day just from those movements.
Yeah.
Not being able to stretch at all. I couldn't get my arms behind my head, all those kinds of things. So the first week was very revealing to me. I've always considered myself pretty active and strong, just naturally, but I know what bad shape looks like.
Sure.
And I was in the worst of probably of my life. So, so I just, I stuck with it. I figured I spent this money. I'm at least going to wait out a month. We'll see how it works.
Yeah, for sure.
And interestingly enough, by the last workout, I think it was the bike, and everybody looks at different metrics. I look at the repetitions per minute, and it had gone up by 10 within a month, and I'm like, that's progress.
Oh yeah.
And my thighs were still burning, but
Yeah.
but I was able to do it, and I was doing air squats, 10 of them at a time.
Yeah.
And those kinds of things, which sounds easy now, but
Sure. But then
but back then, yeah, it's just like, wow, it's like baby learning to walk,
Yeah.
So yeah, that was the best choice for me was the personal touch, so that I could just stop and not feel the peer pressure of going.
Yeah, dude.
Although I wanted that accountability, and I knew it would come eventually. So once that was over, I was ready to fold into the regular classes and start on white, basically. But the good news was, the best part about being here was I didn't feel ashamed, to be at a lower level, because I saw other people and I met people my age, and then the community part of it, just recognizing that everybody wants to be friends and or at least be friendly.
Sure.
And there were no egos whatsoever, which amazed me. I'd never been to a gym where there wasn't at least one guy that just was like over there in the corner flexing,
Yeah.
And there was none of that. So
weed that out here.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, it sounds like a commercial, but you guys actually lived what you advertised. So
that's the goal.
Yeah. So culturally, it was a good culture fit. The chemistry was there with all the coaches like you and others. I felt immediately like, I was part of the team, and was always encouraged, which was something I never had, So
I'm curious to hear about your in-body changes. So like, if you look at your in-body now and you look over from now to when you started, like what are the metrics? Like what's changed?
Well, body fat percentage is crazy. I mean, I look at people like you who have probably been in the single digits before, and I know I think you said you're like 10 or 12 now or something like that, or maybe, but, and I always wanted to picture what that looked like. Because I've had those scales, those cheap scales that try to give you that, and they're never accurate. And I was like, man, I'm 50% body fat, that kind of thing. And, but I kind of I think body fat percentage for me was huge, because, like they say, there's a six pack in everybody. It's just hidden. So, so I decided to, focus on that. I knew the weight would take care of itself. But the strength also, just to be able to get up off the ground, was important to me. So I just trusted the process, failed several times.
Talk about that a little bit if you don't mind. Like, because people do that so much. A lot of times it gets them off track.
Well, you just picture a graph in your mind, and I do graph things, so I literally do. But I picture, the peaks and valleys that you go through in anything like this. Whether it's career oriented or weight loss or fitness. And, I could quote tons of cliches and things like, failure just means you tried and all that kind of stuff. Sure. So I knew I was going to have good days and bad days coming here. I knew consistency was the main mantra. So I just showed up. Some days I had a really bad workout, felt like I was going to puke. Other days, I killed it, and just was energized afterwards and felt really good about myself. So, but for me, it was really slow progress, in terms of weight. I've been very self-conscious about my weight my whole life. So, so again, some people are motivated by different things. I just wanted to look better.
Sure.
I didn't want people to look at me and say, see a fat guy.
Yeah, I understand.
And, so that's why I always had this false sense of accomplishment before, when it was mostly cardio weight loss, because I maybe was able to buy smaller clothes, but knowing now what I know, I was not fit.
Yeah.
So weight was my big motivation. I got very frustrated. I think I came to you a couple times and just said, it's just,
It's not right.
something's not right. I've been here 6 months. I've only lost 7 pounds.
And then what was my response? Do you remember?
You said to just be consistent, but you also reminded me how much stronger I had gotten. You said, you're lifting heavier weights than you were. So the recomposition was what was taking place at that point.
Like recomposition being like you're gaining muscle and losing fat.
Right. So, yeah. So that's why the scale wasn't moving, because I was replacing one for the other, but also the body was adapting.
Yep.
And I wasn't giving it enough time.
Sure.
So, the muscle confusion that you get with CrossFit was helping, and the body was just trying to figure out what the heck I'm trying to do to it.
Yeah.
And at least that's I'm
sure.
picturing like little things running around in there, saying, well, you got to move over here now. So move this piece of muscle over here now. Yeah. So redistribute. So, and then just finding that balance. But as you guys say, and again, just being a quote machine, you can't outwork a bad diet. So that hadn't really changed. Mm-hmm. So I was coming in consistently. I was making friends. I was enjoying myself, but I was still eating poorly, not as bad as before, but sure. Poorly. Because even I knew, I couldn't go and eat like I was before and still consider myself, pat myself on the back just for coming in. So I made it through the first year of holidays in 2022 to get into 2023. And then I'd say around March of last year was when I really started to focus on the diet part of it. At that point, I think I was maybe down 12 pounds. And I was like, okay, it's still progress. Sure. The InBody from, I think you said it was February, was, I think it was down 12 pounds and maybe 3 or 4% body fat. Mm-hmm.
Which is good change.
Exactly, right. So that was that much less cardio stress and all those other things. My knees were still hurting. I was still limited. I literally couldn't get off the ground. Like I wasn't doing the jump rope and the box jumps and things like that. As you know,
you couldn't leave the floor.
I couldn't leave the floor. Yeah.
Interesting.
Even after 9 months of it. So and then I went on vacation in May and just went nuts, and my weight went back up, and all that 12 pounds, I cut that progress in half. I gained.
You guys went to Europe?
Yeah. Went to Europe and gained 6 of it back. For about a week, I thought about quitting. Yeah. I think I maybe came in one time in about a month.
I remember that.
In that month of May. And just thought, you know what? I don't know what it was. There was something at home. I was picking up something, and I picked it up with one hand. And I'm like, I usually pick that up with 2 hands.
Interesting.
I don't remember what it was. I think it was like a circular saw.
Yeah.
I grabbed it and moved it like that.
That's cool.
Rather than walking over there and moving it like that. And I'm like, dude, I just picked that up with one hand, and that was usually a 2-hander. Yeah. And I thought, and then that's when I recognized, I'm getting stronger. No shit. This is good.
That's so interesting.
Yeah. It's just the little things you notice.
But that's life, man. Yeah. Like life is full of little things.
Right. I mean, how many of us try to overcarry too many bags of groceries in? I can do them all now. Yeah. Every time. Every time. So I carry all the groceries.
Yeah.
I don't have to go back. I don't have to go back and forth. Yeah. So yeah, that was that. And then by March or April, by May when I got back, that's when you and I had a talk, and you talked about food prep. We weren't talking about portion control or anything like that, because I knew what I needed to do. So on Sundays, I just started cooking. And
talk about that a little bit, like shed some light on what you found worked for you.
Well, I like food, so thankfully I'm not picky. I think that I have benefit there, because I know a lot of people, they hate vegetables and things like that. I love all that stuff. And then just the way you prep it, food can get boring if you eat the same thing all the time. So I would find different ways to cook chicken, for example. Sometimes I would grill it. Sometimes I would, poach it. Sometimes I would shred it, and even though it's the same meat and tastes the same, but, once you put
difference enough.
Yeah, difference enough. You tell yourself that you're going to have a taco instead of, just a grilled chicken breast. Sure. Right. So, but sauces and things like that help, especially if they're healthier, Mm-hmm. and then just balance, those macros. I started to learn a little bit more about that on my own, and recognize how much protein I needed, versus, simple carbs and fats and things like that. Recognize fat was not the enemy. And that everybody thinks it is. And so really just kind of a balance of like a 40, 30, 20 kind of thing. I don't know what that 40, 30, 30.
Yeah, that's right.
So
Like 40%
40 being the
protein.
protein. Yeah. So, and you had talked about that as well. So getting the protein was hard because you're eating more than you realize.
Yeah.
But the calories of, 8 ounces of chicken breast it's only 250 calories or something like that. It's not much.
You eat a lot of food.
And you're getting 50 grams of protein in one shot.
Yeah.
So those I think you have to educate yourself, and you have to be willing to experiment with different diets. And so I just bought a bunch of like these bowls that you could, put in the freezer, and I would food prep. And I didn't want to eat the same thing all the time, so I would usually make 2 or 3 different things and then freeze the rest. And
like what did you make? Just like the most recent Sunday you meal prep. What did you make?
I air fried red potatoes and broccoli, and then made little chicken chunks and put like an uzu or a Japanese kind of barbecue sauce on it. That's it.
Cool.
And then sometimes it'd be jasmine rice, and I'd make like an Indian styled chicken of some sort, with some cumin and some other spices on it. And then I'd make soup, a lot of soup.
Yeah.
Soup is very filling, and you're also getting water.
Mm-hmm.
So I found that to be a lot of stews and soups, and just
that's awesome.
Yeah, with just chicken broth and things instead of cream.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's just common sense. Well, at least for me, it was.
Sure.
And not for everybody. I think people don't realize how much fat is in cream, for example, or when you put it in your coffee, you think you're putting in 2 tablespoons, you're probably putting in a quarter cup. That kind of thing. So
an easy 50 grams of sugar.
Yeah. So you have to pay attention. So that was what I was doing. I'm doing it to this day. And I would say right around July 4th or so, I started noticing the scale changing rapidly.
Like how rapidly? What happened?
I would say 2 pounds a week minimum.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's
and
significant.
it is. But I also knew anything more than that could be
too much.
Yeah. It could be,
that's like the top end of the sweet spot.
Right. And I didn't want to eat my muscle. Yeah. So, but I started to notice definition. You made a joke during one of our classes that you could see my tricep, and that was a big confidence booster.
Good, man.
Just little comments like that. You don't realize how important those are. I'm like, wow, I have a tricep muscle now.
Put that there.
Yeah, exactly. So,
that's cool.
So yeah, it's just little things that started adding up to a lot of good, positive momentum. And I wanted more. It became kind of my drug of choice was just the people noticing.
Yep, I know that is.
Every time I'd walk in, somebody would say something like, "Yo, you're looking good," or whatever.
Or just last night, someone commented on your weight loss.
Yeah. So yeah, that was mission accomplished in terms of one of the first things I want to do. I think I even told you that it was vanity.
Well, most people, isn't it? Anybody that says it's not about how they look in the mirror naked is usually that's a huge part of it.
Right.
And there's nothing wrong with that, man.
No, it's a means to an end. So, so for sure that was part of it. But yeah, I think the last 6 months of really, I had to go through a year of frustration, trial and error.
Most people do.
And that's when most people quit too, unfortunately.
Right.
They give it a year or 6 months.
They don't really try. Like they just show up and they're bare minimum.
Bare minimum, exactly. They go through. They don't move up in levels, but I've always been competitive, and so I look at the board every day to see what times and weights people are doing, and I'll joke with Lindsay about trying to keep up with her. She's sort of my target.
Yeah.
And I've beaten her a couple times.
Yeah.
So that makes me feel good, and I didn't worry about. Maybe as you get older, you don't worry as much about what people think, but I wasn't worried about it being, less weight than the women in the class and stuff like that.
There's no shame in that.
Yeah, and I just knew because they'd been coming here longer and they're stronger, and there's a lot of powerful people here. Yeah. So I just focused on myself, and I'd always find some target, somebody that I wanted to see. Oh, even you, I tried to keep up with you one time, and I was only like 1 rep behind it.
Oh yeah, dude.
I don't remember which workout it was, but it was a mainly cardio one, I think. But
it's good to have those targets.
Yeah, exactly. And then I've found friends and people like James, and we push each other. And I think once you find that that tribe, if you will, of people. It's not cliquish here at all, which is cool, but there are the same people that I kind of identify with. But I've also found myself gravitating more towards the other end of the gym where the more fit people tend to go. And
I'm always trying to combat that segregation. So.
It just happens naturally. But yeah, I've noticed that as well. But I move around.
Cool. I'm glad.
And that's important to me because I don't want anyone to ever feel like, they have to work at one side or another.
Yeah, me either.
And I'll partner up with people of all walks of life. So that's just what drives me. Yeah. I want people to feel supported and that they're in a safe zone, if you will.
Yeah,
no one's judging them. But they also need to be pushed.
Yeah, they do.
I'm not a coach, but I'm not gonna let somebody slack if I'm partnering up.
Yeah, that's the point of this workouts is to make people push themselves.
Yeah, and I think that accountability is the biggest difference between CrossFit and everything else.
Between your peers and your coaches.
Yes. Yeah. And just the personal accountability of just being there and knowing that someone's working just as hard as you are.
Yeah.
That if you start to slack, what does that say about you, right?
Yeah.
So character is real important for me, and everybody I've met here has really good character. So, and I think that comes from the community that's been built. Because there may have been people that were the bro or the lunkheads or whatever you want to call them at another gym, but they came here and they were quickly humbled by how just nice and friendly everybody is, and that this isn't the place for you if you're going to have an ego. So
yeah, that's the goal.
Yep.
Pay attention.
So yeah, so that's it in a nutshell. I mean, there's a lot of bumps and bruises along the way, a lot of flattening out of the progress, but it always goes down.
Yeah, you showed me.
in terms of the weight. Yeah, in terms of the weight.
I wonder if the camera, if you showed your little Apple to your phone.
It's over there. It's in my coat pocket, the inside coat pocket.
I wonder if you could pull it up and show that's such a good example of what real progress looks like.
Yeah. So I use an app that pairs with my scale. It's a decent scale, but basically over a year's time, I can show. You can see that steep curve there starting mid-year last year. So for the last 6 months, for whatever reason, that curve is just really steepened out.
Because you've been prepping food and eating healthy consistently.
Right, and just been very consistent. So,
and even when you're traveling, you're not going out and binging on junk.
Exactly. So yeah, and I've been traveling a lot, so that's important is to remember even if I can't get to a gym, to keep moving, maybe take a walk, but also don't use it as an excuse to just stop through drive-throughs and stuff like that. So
I want to end on two different things. I think one, I want to end on what's an example of, so you're traveling, because someone might watch this and they might travel for work. When you're traveling, what do you do for food? To try to be healthy?
Yeah. Well, I won't lie and say that I bring my food because
no, of course,
I don't.
That's not.
But I always have. I'll have protein shakes as a snack if I need something like a sweet tooth kind of craving. So I have those the cans, that you sell.
Mm-hmm.
I have those, but I'll basically take the time to stop and go in somewhere rather than a drive-through. So like a Panera or something like that, I'll find one and I'll pre-plan it before I even get going, knowing where I'm going to go 4 hours from now.
Yeah. And
then I'll stop there and intentionally get out, order something reasonably healthy.
What's your idea of a reasonably healthy choice? Somewhere like that. What would you get?
I mean, a salad would be ideal.
Yeah.
And then I'll exchange the ranch for balsamic or something like that. So I know where the empty calories are coming from, from all the trial and error. So things can sneak up quickly. And then I'll avoid, they always put a piece of bread with it or something. I'll avoid that. I'll ask for an apple.
Yeah.
And then, but if I'm craving a sandwich, I'll eat a sandwich, but I'll eat a half sandwich and then maybe get soup, and do that deal. Or I'll not eat it all and just save the rest for later or something like that. I always felt like I had to finish everything.
Yeah, right.
And now I've found that I can eat half of it and then save the rest for later, or just don't save it at all. I mean, I hate to waste, but it's better than cramming it down my throat.
Well, it's Noel says, it's either waste or waste.
Yeah, that's true.
It's going to be around your waist or it's in the trash can.
That's true. And thankfully, I'm not. I don't crave sweets very often either. So I'm not like a dessert guy. But I'll eat ice cream or something.
Yeah.
But it's all about quantity. It still tastes the same whether you have a full pint or just a couple of scoops.
Yeah.
So yeah. So basically, I try to prep in advance where I'm going to go. I'll look like if I'm going to be in like Wilmington, and I know where I'm staying. I'll look for restaurants near there and see which ones might have the options I would want. Like maybe I want to go to an Outback or something and just have a steak,
sure,
and get that protein. So, but not have the big onion that comes, that kind of stuff. So, yeah,
just being intentional.
That's right. Intentional choices, plan ahead. That's what I do.
That's awesome. And then the last thing would be, how much weight have you lost as far as pounds of body fat? And then how much has your percent body fat changed?
That's a good question. I think can't read without my glasses, but I know it's double digits. The weight is at least 45 pounds.
Yeah. So you're down 45 pounds total. You've lost 55.9 pounds of body fat.
That's crazy.
And that's 1 pound of body fat.
50 of these.
55.
55 of these. Yeah. That
almost
would be
56 of those.
That'd be a trash bag full.
Yeah. A Glad trash bag.
Yep.
Exactly.
Yep.
Isn't that crazy, dude?
Carrying that around.
That was on your body.
Been carrying a toddler for 10 years.
You've been carrying like an adolescent.
Yeah, maybe two adolescent, 2 toddlers.
So you mentioned your percent body fat was important to you. So your percent body fat has gone down 12.6%, which is insane. Like you came in at 41% body fat, and now you're down to 28% body fat.
I've never been in the 20s.
Yeah. And you're still cruising down.
Yeah, I've got more to go.
Yeah, dude.
So
it's insane.
You better watch out.
Bring it, bro.
Coming for you.
Come beat me, man.
Yeah.
Lynn's better watch out. Coming for
you. Yeah. So yeah, no, I've found that spark of competitiveness again.
Yeah.
And I think that helps.
It's a good tool.
It is. So I'll use it. I use it as motivation. I also use a bad workout as motivation. So I have those this week alone. I had to leave early because I was nauseous. I was very sick. But the next day I came back and probably had one of my best workouts ever.
So, last night.
Yeah. So,
and you were jumping on boxes last night.
And I jumped up 16. I'm not quite to 20 yet, but
it's better than 0, which is
I can jump to 16. I can do jump rope now.
And the knee surgery. What's up with that?
Yes, that's right. So that was probably God, how did we forget?
That's your biggest
probably the biggest life change of all was I had double knee replacement surgery planned. I planned it way back last March because it took 6 months just to get an appointment. Yeah. And I was still hurting. My weight hadn't come down as steeply as it has yet. I was definitely feeling good and strong, and I questioned it, but the doctor, he says, there's nothing else we can do for you. You've literally tried every potion we have and every exercise. He says, the only thing you can do now is lose weight and see if that helps. And I said, okay. But I knew that. Yeah. So he didn't motivate me. I just knew that. But I said, let's go ahead and schedule it. So January 2nd, 2024, I was scheduled to have dual knee replacement surgery.
That was 2 weeks ago?
Yeah, 2 weeks ago. So my neighbor called it beast mode. She's like, you're doing them both at the same time? I'm like, yep.
We have a client that comes and does one-on-one sessions, and she had one done about a year ago.
Is that right? Yeah. So it's all too common. It's a very successful surgery. It's not, I didn't feel like there was any risk. But I also felt like that part of me was going to be gone. Like it feels like an amputation in a way. But I also know I would have felt better. Everybody I've ever talked to has had a joint replacement says it's the best thing they've ever done. I don't know why I was stubborn about it, but I just don't want it. So anyway, fast forward, November, I believe it was, right before Thanksgiving. I lost my 40th pound, I think, at that point, and just decided, damn, I don't hurt as bad as I did. And I'm jumping, I'm off the ground, running.
Yeah, running.
Running was crazy.
We thought you'd never do.
I thought I'd never run.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, I still tell people I'm never running again. But I've been able to do the sprints and the stuff outside and actually do it pretty fast. So all that coalesced into just my decision to be like, to me, people that need joint replacements are the kind of people that can't get out of their chair, can't walk upstairs, can't do the simple things. And I can do all those things and more. And I'm still climbing mountains, or still want to anyway. And so until I can't do that anymore, I was able to, thankfully I just canceled it.
Yeah.
So here I am 2 weeks later. I'd right now be in bed recovering.
Yeah, literally.
Still. It would have been 3 months I'd have been out.
Yep.
At least.
At least.
And now,
you're jumping on boxes.
now I'm jumping on boxes. Yeah. So, yeah, it's been, I mean, I won't call it a miracle because I worked my butt off.
Yeah,
so, but
it's
in a
life
way,
change, though.
but it's been a miracle, if you will, that I, found the right people at the right time. So,
And stuck with it.
And
did all the
stuck with
hard things.
that's right. So, yeah, so I don't really believe in fate because I had to walk in here, but thank God you guys were here close by. I mean, I live close by. It's a lot harder to get motivated when you have to drive 20 minutes somewhere or whatever. So all those things kind of worked in my favor.
Yeah. Perfect storm.
Yeah. So yeah, no, I mean, still more to come, but so far so good.
Last thing, waiting on this. What would you say to Kraig in May of 2022? If you could talk to him and tell him something.
I'd say you're crazy for trying this mountain next month. But that die had been cast already, so I knew I was going. But I'd probably say, I know you're not going to make it, but when you get back, start turning your life back around because you got a lot more to live. Because at that point in May of 2022, I was probably feeling pretty bad already because I knew a month from then I was going to be failing. So it's sad when when you already can see the future and know you're about to fail at something you're really good at.
Yeah.
So I probably would have motivated myself to just not go to that dark place, but use it as motivation to get better.
Yeah.
And so I ended up doing that anyway.
Sure.
But yeah, I try not to beat myself up too much on the past because I don't have any regrets. Everything I've done, I've enjoyed. But yeah, knowing what I know now about health and fitness in general, nobody's going to live forever, but I certainly want to slow the clock.
For sure.
And I've definitely done. I've not slowed it. I've reversed it.
Yeah, so you turned it around.
I'm definitely feeling younger than I did 2 years ago.
I believe that.
And even though I've aged 2 more years, so
yeah.
So I don't feel my age at all. So, and that's important. So anyone else that might be watching, or listening, that's in their 50s, it's definitely possible to turn back the clock.
Yep.
No matter what the doctors say. So the fountain of youth is hard work.
Yeah, 100%.
Yep. Simple as that.
Proud of you, dude.
Thank you.
Good job.
Appreciate it.
I appreciate doing this.
Thank you for everything you've done.
Yeah.
Be born.